Kingscreek is a horror podcast, and thus the content in this episode may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
You are now entering Kingscreek. Episode 13, Thorn in Your Side.
Okay, this is Damien Bachman. The date is October 12th, 2008. I've taken my microphone outside and am currently standing outside the Misty Pond Bar and Grill. Haven't had any luck looking for dirt on Crimson Apothecaries in the files, so I figured it was finally time to actually go into the town proper and do some investigating of my own. The Misty Pond is a big gathering spot, I think, and it definitely gets referenced in a couple of Uncle Mark's files. Standing here, I can definitely say it's creepy. There's so much fog. The street lights barely cut through it. It's eerie. So a weird place in a weird town that's referenced in a bunch of weird files, probably the best place to find people who've seen weird medical-related stuff. Worth a shot, anyway. Gonna go in. Wish me luck. Right. Can you state your name into the microphone?
What, right now? In the bar?
Well, it's not like I have a studio or anything. You said you had something strange to report. Is it not urgent?
I don't know if urgent is the right word. It's pretty important, though, I think.
Then state your name into the microphone.
Alright. Hi there. My name is Cameron Reed.
And what else?
I'm 34 years old. I'm an accountant and a Gemini.
No, what I meant was, could you talk about what you saw? You said that you saw something that had to do with, like, herbs and stuff, right? Like medicinal herbs?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. I might be an accountant, but my hobby is plants. Specifically, I like to grow herbs and roots. Not so much fruits and flowers, like a lot of people who garden. Flowers are pretty, sure, but they don't serve a ton of purpose besides just being a way to get bees to spread pollen around. Herbs and roots are, in a word, more utilitarian. You get so much more utilization out of them than most flowers. Sure, people can eat daisies and the hips of roses, but where's the spirit in that? Convenience? Besides, most store-bought flowers have all their useful qualities selectively bred out of them, so that they can look as pretty as possible on a shelf before they wither. One thing I did always like about roses, specifically though, was their thorns. Much better poets than I have gone on and on about the symbolism of a sign of love having sharp weapons that prick you if you're not careful. But to me, it's not about love. It's more about respect. The knowledge that even if you take the flowers from their rightful place, you can't do so without showing the utmost care and attention, or you get hurt. That's respect. That doesn't change what I think about flowers overall, though. I'd much rather have a delicious potato soup with my homegrown thyme and pepper than a jar of decaying roses. But that's besides the point. Not where my story begins. Despite all my internal feelings about flowers, I have a membership at the Atlantia Floral Society. Since I can tell you haven't heard of it, it's a regional collection of plant hobbyists like myself, and we meet once a fortnight to swap gardening tips, seeds, and so on. It's a good way for me to find curious and like-minded plant people, even if I don't care much for the gossip or the clear flower favoritism. And I'll admit, it's pleasant. Every month we switch out where we're meeting. Sometimes we meet in Tacoma, sometimes in Kalama, sometimes Castle Rock, sometimes Longview, and even sometimes in Atlantia. But recently I've started dreading the months where the society comes to visit Kingscreek. Well, you'll understand why soon. The first time something weird happened was back in January of last year. The Floral Society was meeting at my house. The society isn't very big, maybe a maximum of 10 to 15 members at any given time. So it was easy enough to host them. We were all chatting in the living room, each taking various chairs or standing as needed, when we heard a loud scream from outside. It sounded familiar, and when we all rushed out to see where the noise had come from, I saw why. Sean, one of our founding members, was laying flat on the ground, puddled mud scattered around where he had fallen. Based on the footsteps, it seemed that he'd just run from the woods, lost his footing, tripped. When we got him to his feet, he was shaking, and refused to say anything to anyone about what had happened. Now here's the weird part. He was really dirty. I know he'd just fallen into a mud puddle seconds before, but still, the dirt wasn't muddy, if that makes sense. It was dry, powdery, and it was caked on in hard lumps, especially where his skin was exposed. Some of the clumps didn't even look dirt brown. You know, polished oak, kind they use for tables at the insides of walls. It was that color. Vivid, reddish brown. Sean left the meeting early. It was inconvenient for me, who was hoping to buy some of the natural tube root plants he'd been bragging about. But I couldn't blame him. It seemed like whatever happened had really shaken him up. The image of those dirt clumps stuck in my mind, though. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen in my years digging through earth, and it bothered me. And somehow they looked painful? The skin around them seemed red. It was mildly inflamed. It was a subtle thing, but it bothered me. Over the next few meetings, Sean kept to himself more. It wasn't incredibly obvious, but for someone who was a founding member and usually involved himself in even the most heated and tense discussions. Never argue about whether or not broccoli is a flower with a hobbyist. Word of advice. It was odd the amount of time he spent sitting quietly in a corner watching us. But we had other priorities besides him. By the time of the next meeting in Kingscreek, around August of last year, I'd mostly forgotten about the incident. Sean still kept to himself, which was strange, but after a while, that started to fade into the background among the heated arguments about the right way to plant a daisy seed. If it wasn't for the other weird event, I don't think I would have remembered him at all. This time we held the meeting in the basement of the local high school. We'd switched to community centers in the intervening months because, quite frankly, we were getting tired of all squeezing together in someone's living room. The space didn't really help with the feeling that we were trapped, though, considering the harsh lighting from a single light bulb and bare concrete walls. It was pretty cold down there, too. So much so that about 20 minutes in, I went back upstairs to get warm. It was dusk outside the school. Orange sunlight streamed in through the windows, filling the hallways with a dull red glow. The heat from the day had warmed up the ground floor, and I could feel the sensation returning to my fingers. I was just about to head back into the meeting when I saw some movement inside one of the classrooms. Curious, I went to investigate, pushing open the door. It was dark. The lights were off and the blinds halfway closed. The sunlight that made it through cast long shadows over the desks and chairs, creating strange shapes on the wall. In the back of the room, I could see 3 figures, all digging at something with their arms. I couldn't see much more than that, but I could hear squelching, wet chewing, things of that nature. Curious, I flipped the light switch. As soon as the light went on, the figures froze. I saw only the backs of their heads, but I still recognized them. They were all members of the society. David, a good friend of mine, Samantha, a younger, newer member, and Sean. "There you are, guys. I've been looking for you," I said. Truth be told, I hadn't actually noticed they were gone, but I was just relieved that I hadn't stumbled into a group of burglars. That relief was dampened slightly when the 3 members turned around and my heart skipped a beat. Their mouths, hands, arms, and chests were covered with dirt. No, not dirt. Fertilizer. Behind them was a bag of the stuff, a ragged hole torn in the side. Fertilizer spilled onto the ground and trailed into their mouths. It looked like they'd been eating it? They stood there watching me. Taking a slightly closer look, I realized that Samantha and David, on top of being covered in fertilizer, also had a few of those same clumps of polished dirt oak I'd seen on Sean all that time ago, as well as the accompanying inflamed skin. Sean, for his part, didn't have them anymore, but now with my first good look at him since the incident, I could see subtle scarring where they'd been. I tried to hide my horror, but I'm not sure I succeeded. Either way, they gave me the same expressionless stare, and I eventually just excused myself. I'd come up to get warm, but that wasn't stopping the chill I felt rising up the back of my neck. The three returned to the meeting shortly after I did, their faces clean of fertilizer but not of the clumps. Still, it's not like anyone else noticed. Four of us all kept silent for the rest of the meeting, while the other members chatted. I avoided eye contact, smiling, reacting to the conversation. The few times I glanced back at them, however, they were still staring at me, and a fresh chill would go down my spine. During the next couple of meetings, I kept tabs on Sean and the others. The very next time we all met, David and Samantha no longer had those brown clumps, growths, on their skin. But I could see the beginnings of scarring, like the kind Sean had. They would sit, silently watching the whole affair. The thing was, they didn't do anything else. I don't have any other stories of those three acting strangely. They just attend meetings now, completely willingly, seemingly completely enraptured in the discussion, but always completely silent. It's eerie. But as I kept my eye on those three at meetings, something else caught my attention. A couple of meetings after the one in the basement, I noticed that Marjorie was unusually quiet. This was a very notable change. Beforehand, she'd always been almost the class clown of the group, constantly trying to make big jokes and gestures to get a laugh. But tonight, for whatever reason, she was sitting in her chair, hands folded in her lap, and patiently listening to everyone else speaking. It was quite unlike her. After the meeting, when we were all putting our coats back on and grabbing our bags and purses and stuff, I tried to get closer to Marjorie to see if I could chat with her. I got within 5 feet of her, was about to say something, and froze. Dotted all along her neck, hands, and face were the same little scars I'd seen on Sean, David, and Samantha, where previously there had been those growths. Marjorie hadn't noticed me standing there, so I quickly made my exit. Ever since that meeting, I've watched as one by one, each member of the Atlantea Floral Society fell silent, with similar scars peppering their skin. I can't be the only one who's noticed it, but no one seems to want to acknowledge it. Discussions have turned from multifaceted, spirited debates into feeble one-on-one or three-way conversations, while the rest of the society sits there silently watching. It feels like we're slowly being overtaken by something, but we don't know what. Which brings us to the last meeting I went to, about 2 months ago. We were in an old house in a vineyard near Castle Rock. It was overcast, but not raining. There were 3 of us who hadn't changed yet. Myself, Matthew, and Rose. We were able to get some feeble conversation going, but the 7 pairs of eyes staring at us from every angle made it impossible to get comfortable, so Rose and I, both seemingly independently, decided to get some fresh air. I went on a walk by the front of the house, and she went through the back door. It was good for me to get back out in nature. All that time I'd spent indoors talking about plants made me forget why I had actually gotten involved with the society in the first place. And walking amongst the vineyard rows gave me a lot of the peace I'd been missing at these meetings. I don't know how long I walked around that place, but I know that by the time I noticed, I could see the first signs of the sun lowering in the sky. On my way back to the house, though, I heard something moving in the vine rows. Curiosity struck me then, and I went to investigate. Leaves rustled, and I could hear bits and pieces of a conversation. I couldn't tell who it was, but as I got closer, I heard it stop, and movement quickened in intensity. Finally, I got close enough to be able to see the commotion through the vines. It was Samantha and Rose. They were embracing? No, kissing. Very passionately, too. They kept thrashing around and bumping into the vine frames, sending the leaves shaking. Now, I'm not a very nosy person, and while I was still wary of Samantha, this seemed like a private matter between these 2 ladies. I was just about to turn my attention away and leave when their lips separated. At that moment, I threw my hand up to my mouth to stop myself from screaming. When their lips disconnected, I could see something moving from Samantha's mouth to Rose's. It was thick and the same oak brown that those clumps had been. It looked like a massive, writhing root, and it was speckled with small, pointed ends. Thorns. My attention focused on Rose. Now with this context, she didn't look like she was moving with excited pleasure. No, she was writhing in pain. and I could hear choked gasps and muffled yells as she attempted to scream. Samantha, on the other hand, was still, allowing the vine to slither into Rose like a serpent. The vine finally exited Samantha's mouth, and Rose fell to the ground, still convulsing. I watched, my heart pounding in my throat, as I saw those growths appearing all over her skin, poking through her clothes and bursting out of her face. And now I could finally see the little brown points at their tips. With stark horror, I realized that all this time, they too had been thorns. The rest is a blur. I ran back into the house, got my coat and keys, got in my car, and sped away, trying my hardest to ignore the swarm of spotted figures in my rearview mirror. I don't know what's going to become of the Atlantia Floral Society, but I'm not sticking around to find out. I'll stick to my herbs and roots.
That really wasn't what I was looking for at all.
What, was that not weird enough for you? It's sure been bothering me for the last year.
No, I mean, like... never mind. Thank you. This will make a good addition to the collection, I guess.
Great. Now can you leave me alone?
Sure. Well, I guess that could have gone worse, as far as first tries go. Mr. Reed's story, while not helpful to the Crimson Apothecary's case, does bear some interest, I guess. It connects to something Uncle Mark wrote about in Case A15 with the Thorn imagery and the parasitic dynamics. But it is a little discouraging not being able to get closer to the core issue of what actually caused his death. I don't know. I'll try again tomorrow, I guess. This is Damien Bachman, signing off.
Today's episode of Kingscreek was written and performed by Thomas S. Dennis, with additional voices by Teddy Leitner. It was produced by James Makepeace, and the score was composed by Kai After Kai. Script supervision is provided by James Makepeace and Ryan Kennedy. Our cover art is by CyberGrapeUK, and our social media manager is Ryan Kennedy. All episodes are a production of Tracer Magnum Entertainment. If you'd like to support the show, rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, or whatever service you use to listen to our show. It helps tremendously and ensures we're seen by more and more of the unsuspecting public. If you'd like to get in touch with us or become involved with the community, join our Discord server, post on the r/Kingscreek subreddit, or follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr, all under the handle @KingscreekOfficial. Share with your friends, family, or anyone else you want to ensnare in our web. And above all else, thank you for listening.